There are things in life that we don't expect. Sometimes a simple act of kindness can be more powerful than any diploma hanging on the wall or $1 million balance in the bank. And that's exactly what happened on an ordinary afternoon in a historic square with a woman who was invisible to the eyes of the world, but a giant in essence. Luia Pereira, a homeless woman who seemed to have lost everything, had more knowledge in her calloused hands than many businessmen in suits. And when she decided to help a boy with a broken wheelchair, she had no idea that this small act of empathy would be the beginning of a profound transformation, not only in her life, but also in the life of a powerful businessman who, at that moment, learned what true value is. This text will take you through a real and intense story, full of injustices, surprising twists, and above all, lessons that combine mechanical engineering with pure humanity. If you believe that the best solutions come from where you least expect them, keep reading. You are about to be moved, inspired, and who knows, rethink what really matters. Tiradentes Square was bustling as usual, full of tourists, vendors, and people in a hurry. But there, amidst the hurried footsteps, was Miguel, an 8-year-old boy who was crying softly as he watched his wheelchair fall apart. Beside him, his grandmother, Dona Conceição, was trying in vain to put the fallen wheel back together. It was into this scene that Luia Pereira appeared, worn-out clothes, a messy bun, but with a look that mixed experience and serenity. While everyone looked away, she approached respectfully and offered help, as if she knew firsthand what it was like to be ignored. Even though she was homeless, Luia had something that no one else seemed to have: knowledge and heart. Her hands, marked by time and loss, moved with firmness and technique, improvising with wires, paper clips, and rubber bands. The kind of improvisation that only someone who understands mechanical engineering can do naturally. As she crouched down, someone watched her from inside a luxury car. Gustavo Mendonça, Miguel's millionaire father, who until then had been just another absentee due to too many commitments. What Gustavo saw at that moment was something rare: empathy in action. And what's more, he saw someone doing what he himself should have been there to do. Perhaps that was the first realization. Luia, without knowing it, was using her background in assistive technology not only to fix a wheelchair, but to teach a lesson in humanity. That afternoon didn't end with applause, but something important began there: the silent recognition that social transformation can come from where one least expects it. Before Luia Pereira was seen as the tool fairy by Miguel, she was recognized for something much more formal: her degree in mechanical engineering from UFMG. It wasn't easy to get there. It took 5 years of intense studies, sleepless nights, and notebooks full of notes on assistive technology, a field she chose with all her heart, inspired by personal experiences. She wanted to transform the lives of people with physical limitations, develop better, lighter, and more functional wheelchairs. She dreamed big, and she had everything it took to fly. But life sometimes collapses like a house of cards. An accusation of intellectual property theft, false by the way, destroyed her career overnight. Paulo Rezende, her supervisor at the time, appropriated her ideas and then set it up to make it seem otherwise. The result? Summary dismissal, with no right to defense. The market closed its doors. Her colleagues disappeared. Her UFMG diploma became nothing more than a tube stored in a makeshift shed, where she slept wrapped in a thin blanket. This fall was not only professional, it was human. Seeing her identity crumble, her work being used by someone else, and no one reaching out, that weighs heavily. But the cruelest thing is how society treats those who fall. Luia stopped being an engineer and became the beggar. But inside, the knowledge was still there, alive, pulsating. And it was this silent strength that kept her standing, because, as she herself said, life takes turns. And one of those turns was already on its way. The morning after the meeting in the square, Luia found an envelope stuck to the door of the shed where she slept. The elegant paper and the name Gustavo Mendonça in firm handwriting already told her that this was no ordinary thing. Inside, an invitation to attend a job interview at the headquarters of Mendonça Tecnologia Medica. Her heart raced. Could this be a chance to return to engineering? She spent her last coins on soap and communal laundry. She even fixed her hair in the cracked mirror of the public bathroom. After all, dignity can also be worn. Arriving at the glass and concrete building, she was greeted with judgmental looks, but she remained firm. "I have an interview with Sonia Marquez," she said, and she was called to the 17th floor. However, her expectations turned into a bucket of cold water. Sonia, as cold as a spreadsheet, offered her a job as a cleaning assistant. It was a huge blow. Luia, who once designed prototypes for child rehabilitation, would now be holding a squeegee, but hunger doesn't wait for a diploma, and she accepted. She knew that sometimes the right path starts through the wrong door. In the following days, she cleaned the company's hallways with almost surgical precision. Even though she was invisible to the eyes of the corporate elite, she observed everything. There, between cleaning and using buckets, she saw up-close equipment that resembled her own creations. And the most curious thing, no one seemed to notice that the woman with the broom in her hand had already been on the other side, drawing, planning, innovating. Fate, at this point in the story, was already smiling out of the corner of its mouth, preparing the next move. It was one night, when everyone had already left, that chance, or disguised competence, decided to act. Luia entered the board meeting room for a routine cleaning, but what he found there was much more than dust, a whiteboard full of equations and technical diagrams. He noticed the error right away. It was a subtle detail, but one that could compromise the entire prosthesis project. He didn't think twice. He took the marker and, with the same confidence of someone who has mastered formulas for years, corrected the equation and left an explanatory note. Then he cleaned the room as if nothing had happened. What she didn't know was that the security cameras were on, and that the next day the entire project would be saved thanks to that anonymous correction. When Gustavo Mendonça discovered what had happened, it didn't take long for him to connect the dots. The woman who had saved the project was the same woman who had saved his son, and in a way had also made him rethink his priorities. It was at that moment that he realized that Luia wasn't just a former engineer. She was a brilliant mind, being underutilized in a cleaning uniform. When she was called in for a private conversation, she thought she would be reprimanded, but she heard something else. Recognition. Gustavo wanted her to join the engineering team. And get this, he knew about her background. He knew about UFMG, the assistive technology project, the unfair accusation. It was the beginning of a turning point. An invitation to go back to being what she had always been, an excellent professional, because true talent, even when suppressed, never stops shining. It just needs a glimmer of opportunity to emerge. A few days after being officially included in the technical team, Luia saw ghosts from the past cross her path with the badge hanging around her neck. Paulo Rezende, the man who destroyed her career, also worked there. And what's more, he was the company's R&D director. The reunion was a shock, but also a rare opportunity to face to face, the one who stole her authorship and cast the shadow of professional injustice over her. This time, Luia was not alone or silent. She had Gustavo by her side, and more importantly, the truth. Tensions flared at a board meeting. Paulo tried to repeat the usual script: accusations, disqualifications, empty words. But Gustavo had done his homework. He investigated, cross-referenced evidence, recovered old emails and patent documents. The adaptive articulation project that Paulo said was his, it was, in fact, part of Luia's master's thesis, dated 3 years before her dismissal. When the slides showed the documents side by side, the silence in the room was as sharp as a scalpel. There, in front of the board of directors, Paulo was unmasked. He tried to shout, threaten, insult. He called Luia a street slut. But one of the directors responded firmly, "We are looking at the mind behind our best products." At that moment, justice was served in a symbolic and real way. Paulo was immediately fired and escorted out of the company, and Luia, even though shaken, knew that she was finally beginning to recover what she had lost: her name, her place, her history. But the best was yet to come. With Paulo out of the way, Luia finally had the space to show what she was made of. Gustavo not only kept her on the team, but promoted her to Director of Innovation and Development, a position that almost sounded like poetic justice. Now, with autonomy, she started the Liberdade project, a new generation of wheelchairs that were lighter, more resistant, and above all, more accessible. No more expensive solutions that only served a minority. The proposal was clear: engineering with a social purpose, or as she called it, accessible innovation. The laboratory, which had previously seen her as a cleaning lady, now listened attentively to her instructions. The engineers respected her not only for her experience, but also for her dedication. Luia led each meeting as if she were carrying a mission, not a job. Her vision was shaped by having experienced firsthand what it means to have no resources, by having seen her brother, still a child, suffer from the lack of adequate equipment. That made all the difference. She knew that the project was not just technical, but also human. When she saw the first prototypes working, Luia felt something rare: belonging. It wasn't just about revenge or clearing her name. It was about building something worthwhile. The Liberdade project gained momentum, prominence, and gradually became a symbol within the company. More than just a product, it became a cry for personal achievement, ethics in science, empathy in science, walking hand in hand. And like a good story about a new beginning, the inspiration to go even further already had a name and surname: Miguel. Miguel began visiting the lab frequently, at first just to see the tool fairy, as he called her. But soon, his curious gaze and sharp questions won Luia over in a way that only a genuinely interested child can. He wasn't just Gustavo's son. He was a boy with a lively intelligence who faced physical limitations with quiet courage. And it was seeing that sparkle in his eyes that gave Luia a new idea: the Colibri Project. The name came from Miguel himself, who was enchanted by the way the little birds seemed to defy gravity. And that was Colibri's mission: to develop a lightweight, discreet, and functional pediatric exoskeleton that would amplify natural movements without restricting the child's freedom. Luia threw herself headfirst into the project, reviving her doctoral research that had been interrupted at its peak due to professional injustice. Now she had not only support, but also renewed motivation, and a name, face, and smile to guide every engineering decision. While assembling the first models, she explained to Miguel how each gear worked, how assistive technology could be fun and powerful. It was more than a project. It was a lesson in empathy, applied science, and personal growth. And what's more, it was proof that when you combine purpose with knowledge, something transformative is born. Miguel became more than an inspiration. He became a little mentor of hope. And each test of the Colibri brought with it the certainty that Luia had rediscovered her true place in the world. The big day arrived. The Colibri, now finished and calibrated, was ready for its first real test. It wouldn't be with Miguel yet. Luia insisted on absolute safety beforehand. An adult volunteer with a similar condition was chosen. When the sensors were activated, the entire lab held its breath. And then, something magical. She moved her arm gently, like she hadn't done in years. It was as if time had been kind to her for a moment. She cried. The team applauded, and Luia, even trying to maintain her composure, felt her heart race. It was real. 2 weeks later, it was Miguel's turn. The lab was transformed into a miniature park, with flags, juice, and colorful obstacles. When he donned the suit, his words were straightforward: "I thought it would be more robotic." Luia smiled and replied, "The robots are hidden inside the suit. They're small, but strong like you. And then, the moment. Miguel took his first steps, assisted by the pediatric exoskeleton. The silence was broken by applause and tears. It was more than technology. It was dignity being restored with surgical precision. Mendonça Tecnologia Medica was no longer the same. With Luia leading projects, the company breathed accessible innovation, empathy, and real science. Miguel began to dream of becoming an engineer. Gustavo, who founded the company for his son, was now learning from him. And Luia, she not only regained what was hers, but also expanded what she once dreamed of, making child rehabilitation more humane, efficient, and loving. The story, which began with a broken wheelchair, ended with a boy flying with the lightness of a hummingbird. Now that you know about Luia Pereira's journey, stop and think how many incredible people are invisible at this very moment, just waiting for an opportunity to show what they are capable of. How many talents are dormant due to injustice, and how many incredible solutions still do not exist because someone was silenced before their time. This story is more than just moving, it's a call to action. A powerful reminder that true social change begins when we mix empathy with science and courage with knowledge. And now, the burning question, what are you going to do with this inspiration you just received? If this story touched you in any way, leave your like and show that you value stories of overcoming. Comment below. What moved you most about this journey? Share with someone who needs to believe in second chances. And of course, subscribe to the channel and activate the bell, because there are so many amazing stories coming up and you don't want to miss any of them.